Welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon to today's uh, Lunch and Learn webinar on getting started with Plant 3D P&ID drawings. My name is Philip Charlson from ATG. I am a senior technical specialist here. And again, we're going to take a look at some plant info on P&ID drawings today. But first, a little bit about my background. So I've been as a tech with a Autodesk reseller for 19 of the past 20 years. I spent a year as a BIM manager for a large national firm. I've been instructing users on Revit since early 2002 when I first started using Revit. Also, I work with MEP, architecture companies, and plant design as well. So I've been working with these types of companies since 2001. I also have the most certifications by a user in the state of Minnesota. And if you want to talk Legos or Star Wars, I'm always game for that as well. So let's look into what we're going to be checking out today. So our end goal here today is just simply learning how to develop a schematic representation for a plant design instance. I'm going to show you some of the startup options that we have. Also, some of the comparisons between plant and just regular AutoCAD. For a lot of users now that have the AEC Collections, you may have noticed that you now have access to Plant 3D, which prior was a program that you had to purchase separately. So we're seeing a lot more people start to take a look at the plant design over just doing regular AutoCAD at this point. And I'll be showing you some of the tools within the P&ID that might make it useful to make the move from an AutoCAD instance to the Plant 3D side of things. So again, we're going to be taking a look at those processes and seeing what it takes to develop the P&ID drawings within the Autodesk Plant 3D software. So here's some of our learning objectives that we're going to take a look at today. Again, what is a P&ID drawing? Why is it beneficial? Take a look at the user interface. Show you a little bit of comparisons between an AutoCAD and a Plant 3D interface. Show you how to get started within a P&ID, place some equipment, some lines, and make some edits within a P&ID. So first off, what is a P&ID drawing? So I kind of went out and kind of got the Wikipedia version of what's a P&ID drawing here. And, it's a detailed diagram in the process industry, which shows the piping and process equipment together with the instrumentation and control devices. So for P&ID, it is typically one of the first things that you do with a plant design because it's kind of your quick sketch of how you want your design to go together without maybe thinking of all the different individual parts and pieces. It's a good way to kind of lay out that early on design and then progress with it with the 3D aspect and get a little bit more specific with your information. That information that you use in the P&ID can be utilized in the Plant 3D because they link together. So kind of a nice option there, and you can kind of use it as a checklist. For the Revit users, they have a module that works with Revit that you can utilize your P&ID from Plant into Revit. There is some setup for Revit because Revit isn't necessarily designed for process design, but with some help, templates can be developed, and different types of piping can also be created to be used within Revit. Taking a look at the Plant 3D interface, so I grabbed a couple shots of a couple things kind of importance for Plant 3D and more or less kind of the P&ID aspect that we'll be taking a look at. One of the big thing is the workspaces. So AutoCAD has that along with other vertical products. Workspaces are important in Plant 3D because you have an interface that will work with the P&ID aspect, and you have an interface that will work with the 3D aspect. If you're currently an AutoCAD user, you can actually take a look at workspaces now, and you'll see that there's also something similar to that in AutoCAD. If you are doing a lot of 3D modeling, you have an interface for that, and you have more of a drafting type mode as well for the 2D aspect. The ribbon, which I took a little screenshot down below here, you'll see a lot of the AutoCAD type tools in the ribbon, but within Plant 3D and the P&ID interfaces, you'll have some additional tools to utilize for P&ID and Plant 3D. One thing I didn't get a screenshot of was the project manager. So this is something that's a little different for an AutoCAD user. AutoCAD doesn't have the project manager. Plant 3D and Civil 3D do. And it's a way to kind of control all the documents that you have for the project. And you access the drawings through the project manager instead of just simply a file open like you would typically do within AutoCAD. We also have the properties palette, which comes into play. There's a lot of data that's contained within Plant 3D and the P&ID documentation. So the properties are going to be an important aspect of your P&IDs as well. The next one here is the data manager, which I did take a little screenshot of that. Everything that you put into your P&ID for equipment, you're going to see within the data manager, and you're going to be able to put in different types of information, manufacturer, model information, put tag information within there. There's actually a lot of customization that you can do depending on how much information that you want to add into components. And again, that starts right away with your P&ID. So, you know, in AutoCAD, you somewhat have dumb blocks. You can add some information. You can add attributes to it. Plant 3D is typically a bit more intelligent than just regular AutoCAD out of the box. When you start placing P&ID symbology, there's data attached to that. And that data obviously can transfer over to the 3D aspect of it as well. And there's more intelligence with that. So you really have one really big database with Plant 3D compared to an AutoCAD, where you're kind of building that up from project to project. The other thing, a little bit further along in the Plant 3D side is the spec viewer and just simply writing specs. And what this is basically, you know, you choosing what types of components that you want for a particular spec. It could be for a particular project, and basically you're choosing what you do or maybe what you don't want to be able to use for a particular project. So there's a number of different components that you can go in and add to a spec, and different types of materials, and that's all within the Plant 3D. And you can build that up and make it specific for your company if it's something that you want to repeat over and over again from project to project, you're able to do that. You can also go in and change that information to be project specific. Last one is the tool palettes, which I have the P&ID tool palette. As you can see, there's a few different tabs within here. So this is kind of the out of the box look to the tool palette. So you have a number of tools within there, but there's definitely customization that can be had for that. Plant 3D obviously covers a wide range of industries. So each industry is going to utilize different types of equipment. So you're going to want to customize your tool palette for your particular industry. Again, the P&ID type information is something that's basically repeatable from P&ID to P&ID. When you get into the plant 3D side, those are typically spec driven. So you're going to see pieces of information that you have from the specs and not a default settings, because you only want to be able to see that information that you want to have for that particular project. All right, so next, just simply starting a P&ID drawing. So I'll be getting into this here shortly, but just kind of a really quick breakdown of this, kind of simplify this. So first off, just simply starting a new project within the project manager. If one hasn't already been set up, sometimes we see some 3D plant drawings already been created. So P&IDs can already be added to an existing project. But if a project has not been started, we can go through the process of creating a brand new project. And then within the project manager, there's going to be an area where we can create a new P&ID drawing file. So you'll see those different areas when I get into Plant here and show you the project manager. Once you start up that this new P&ID drawing file, you typically want to go in and start placing your equipment first, kind of getting that laid out. Then we go in and start connecting equipment with the P&ID line work. We can go in and add some data into the equipment that we have. That's going to basically develop or create tags that we can go in and place. And we can get as specific as we want to. We're also able to kind of leave items open, meaning we can go in and change it later, or if we don't know right offhand, right at the start, we can come back and make some changes to that. We also have the option to add some information into the data manager and possibly even export that information out to Excel. Have a person that is not necessarily proficient with a Plant 3D, and they can plug in information in Excel, and you can re-import that, and it basically plugs that back into the symbology and information that you have within Plant 3D. We can go in and place some inline equipment, valve type information. And then we can go in and modify components, line work to our needs. Sometimes you need to adjust your P&IDs to allow a little bit more room for placement of additional objects. You don't always have to place all the equipment right at the start. Sometimes you don't always know what you're going to place. Sometimes some of that information comes later. Sometimes you need to go in and make some modifications to that. All right, so we're going to pop into Plant 3D now. And what I've got right here, I wanted to kind of open up a kind of a sample project and kind of give you a little walk around here of the interface of Plant 3D. So first off, I kind of want to point out the project manager over here. So again, this is the brains of your project, because it contains all the drawings within the project. As I mentioned before, you typically don't want to go to an open and select a file that way. That's what you would do in AutoCAD. Also, I would suggest not going to Windows Explorer and double clicking on a DWG where you have your drawings as well. Because you want to have it run through the process when you do go in and open up a file for P&ID or Plant. It does a little bit of an audit when it does open that up to kind of check the database to see if there's any new information within there. So when I go in and just simply double click on a drawing within here, you might have just seen it for a split second, but there was a drawing validation dialog box, and that's kind of what I was referring to. So I was just kind of checking to see if there's any modifications with any of the P&IDs that might have an effect there, and I would see maybe some other type of notification that I might need to check something. So didn't show anything at that point, so I am good to go with that. Also in the project manager, other than the P&ID drawings, you can see that we have Plant 3D drawings within here. We have some pipe specs in here, so we have quite a few pipe specs. And we also have some related files, so it looks like we have any within here, but those would be any type of supplementary type files that we could use for the project. I also mentioned the data manager. So if I go up to the top here in the ribbon, just kind of a quick glance at the ribbon here, I am in the Home tab, and you'll see that basically up to this point right here, we're looking at all P&ID type information that we can go in and click on. Beyond that, we're looking at really AutoCAD type data within here. And really any of the other tabs, you're seeing AutoCAD type information. But so if I go in and click on this data manager, what happens is it will go in and open up the data manager here on my other screen. So I'll just pull that over here. And with the data manager, it's basically listing out everything right now that I have in this current drawing in the background here. So you'll see in the upper left-hand corner, it says current drawing data. You can see that I can choose the P&ID project data. So that would actually be looking at all 4 of the P&IDs that I have in this project. We also have the option to look at project reports. So project reports, we can go in and create. So I can click on some of these default ones within here, and we can kind of see a listing of what we have as far as equipment within our current project here. It's telling us what drawing that's in. We got an ID number here. You can see manufacturer's model numbers, not a whole lot placed within here. But as I mentioned, these can actually be pushed out of a project. We can actually export these out to an Excel file. And again, a non-Plant 3D user can go into an Excel file. They would see this in an Excel format. They can go in and plug in that data, and they can give it back to you. And you can come back in here and you can import that back in, and it relays all this information to all the components, all this equipment that you have in here. So it basically fills in the data. So you can see we got instrumentation list here, line list. If I go back to the P&ID project data, you can see that we can use a little bit of filtering here. So we can just look at the equipment. We can just look at the filters and filter the filter. Heat exchangers. So we can divide it up by what type of equipment. So if we want to, get down to individual type components, we can go in and do that within the data manager. So really nice, powerful tool to be able to look at that information. And everything that you see within here, this is all right now default out of the box. If I wanted to go in and add more fields to this, if there was other items that I felt were relevant to be seen, I can go in and modify this to show what I want to be able to see, or have someone go in and fill that information in that I need to have. So all of those can be modified. Right next to the data manager is the project manager. And again, that's what we have here. We also have the project setup. So if I go ahead and click on the project setup, you'll see that it actually opens up a separate file. And we got this project symbol style DWG. And what that is it basically contains the project or template information. Plant 3D is a little bit different again than AutoCAD in that you are setting up a project template and not necessarily just a template DWG type file. So within this project symbol style DWG, you're actually saving all of your settings within this DWG, but it's also incorporating it into your project as well. So within the project setup, you have some of your general settings within here. We have our P&ID drawing settings. So when I go in and click on some of these, if I go down to the class definitions here, it looks a little bit confusing, but some of the things you don't have to go in and change. Some things you can go in and copy and modify the way that you want. As you can see here, as I'm going down the tree list here for equipment and blowers, you can see that we have 5 different types of blowers. If you have an interest of developing more types of blowers, we can go in and do that. And if you have some symbology that you may have been using within AutoCAD, some blocks that you've created, we can reuse that information and develop it as a P&ID type symbol. So when I go to this centrifugal blower, you can see right here we have a symbol that represents that blower type style. And we can go in and add a new symbol if we have a different type of look to that. So this isn't something that is, you're stuck with. You can go in and have your own type of symbol. If you have a different type of style, we can go in and edit the symbol. So if you want to tweak it a little bit, we can go in and modify that like you would modify an AutoCAD block. We also would typically go in and edit this block because we want to go in and add some connectors to it. So a little bit different or a little bit of an add-on type feature that you want to do within the P&ID aspect of it compared to AutoCAD, because we want to be able to go in and set where we want the connectors to be when we start connecting line work to it. And also, as you can see here, we can go in and add it to your tool palette that you might have over here. And we can go in and continue to develop that tool palette as you go. Down below here, these are different properties that we can go in and add to it. So these might be items that you look at when you select on the blower in your drawing and you look at the properties. Some of these items you can go in and fill in as far as kind of making a standard. If use the same manufacturer for every single blower, you can go in and add that in here, and you don't have to add it for every single project. It's just going to default to that one every single time. Otherwise, you can go in and modify it when you go in and place it, or you can always come back and take out that default manufacturer, change it to a different one as well. Another thing to look at down at the bottom is what type of tags that you want to go in and use. So when you go in and place this in the P&ID, what do you want it for a designation for a tag? So you can go in and change what type of formatting that you want for the different taggings that you place within the P&ID. So if I go in and click on a modify here, so getting a little bit deeper in the P&ID, but again, you can choose what type of fields. You can see this one has 3 subparts, so that's why we're seeing 3 different line items. So we're seeing the area, a type, and then a number designation for the centrifugal blower style, and that's just the equipment tag there. You can see that you can actually have multiple types of tags as well, because when you go in and start tagging these items, you can get a drop-down list and choose which type of tag that you want to use for that instance. So there can be potentially a lot of customization that you can do, but you'll find that there is some that has been set up for you already within the P&ID and the Plant 3D side of things. So that was just the equipment there. Again, you have inline type information, some valves, fittings, reducers, those types of things. We have instrumentation. We have the different types of lines that we have, and these can go in and be modified, both pipeline and signal type instances. So those can be tweaked. They can be modified in the way that you want to be able to see them. We can change colors, line types, line weights, all that good stuff to make it look the way that you want your P&IDs to look like. So again, that was just the P&ID aspect of it. You can see that there's Plant 3D settings, isometrics, and also ortho type settings. And again, this is all controlled within this project symbol style DWG. And as you can see, when I close it out, it actually closes out that drawing with it as well. So if you made some changes to it, it'll save those modifications within there as well. Now, popping into this P&ID here. So I'm going to go into our model space here and just simply zoom in and just simply take a look at what we have here in a P&ID. So we have some equipment in here. So everything that is green is some type of equipment. When I move my cursor over an item here, you can see that this is just simply a vessel. We have a tag here, TK for tank, and a 004 designation. You can also see that we have some nozzles that we can go in and make some connections to. If we want to go in and change objects to something else, in this case for nozzle, you can see that we have different nozzle types that I can go in and swap them out to. So it's just a more or less kind of a block type instance, a dynamic block that we can go in and change that to a different type of nozzle. You'll see that with valves as well. If I go to a valve here, so if I click on this one here, you can see we have a number of different types of valves. When I move my cursor over it, you can see the different types that we have within there. For some of them, sometimes we can go in and switch the direction. So we got our flip component there. We also have the option to assign tags. So when I go in and use my right-click menu, we can go in and assign a tag. You can see we've got a tag for this one already here. But if I go in and delete that out, just to kind of show you what happens when we click on assign, we get the assign tag dialog box, and you can see that it is set up for a hand valve class. And for that particular class, it's looking for the code and number designation. So the hand valve code is HA in this instance, and it's using the number 121 for the designation. The nice thing about adding tags within here is we can click on the existing hand valves and you can verify, okay, which ones are already being used within the project. And I see here we've got a couple that have duplicate numbers. So whenever I see a question mark behind it, that means we have a duplicate there. So I may have to go in and change that to a different designation because we may want to have different number designations for each of these gate valves within here. So that's a modification that I might go in and do within the data manager, because there I could go in and see all the different types of, again, valves and go in and make those modifications. But it's a nice way to be able to see, again, what's already being used and maybe what number I can use for this designation to make sure that I don't use the same designation as another one. If you do use the same designation, it will pop up with a warning saying that there is one already within it. All right. So I think what I'll do next here is I'm going to get out of this project, and I'm just going to simply start a new project just to kind of show you how we get a project going here. So I'm not going to save any of the options here. And I'm going to close out of my project at this point. So you can see the general plant design in my project manager. So I'm going to right click on that and close out of that project. So at this point, I want to go in and start a new project within Plant 3D. So I can just click on the new here. I can also click in the drop down and select a new project within here. So either one's going to get you the same location for that. So you have a project setup wizard that you need to go through here. So I'm just going to enter a new name here. So we'll just call this one webinar. Keep it simple. We do have options that we can use Vault to store the information. I'm just going to save this right on my C drive here. The other important thing here is copying settings from an existing project. So if you have a lot of your company standards, company settings set up in that drawing that I mentioned earlier from a project, you typically want to check that box and you want to locate the project XML file that contains that information. So that way it will bring all of that data, will actually copy that DWG that has all of your settings into your current project. So this is a very important step to take, and it is the first page that you get to there. In this case, I'm not going to copy any settings from this. I'm just going to use the straight out of the box here, same thing as what you guys might see on your end if you're getting into Plant 3D for the first time. So I'll click next here. We're going to use imperial units, specified drawings where the directory and P&ID drawings will be stored at. So basically took the same location there. It's taking my webinar project name, creating a P&ID drawing folder within there. I'm using the PIP standard symbology. Go ahead and click next. As you can see, it's going to go ahead and create all these additional folders. So it will create a folder structure within your Windows Explorer with all of these folders within there. So it isn't just again a DWG you're creating. You're literally creating a folder structure for a project. So we'll click next here. I'm just going to do a single user for this instance. Click next here, and we will go ahead and finish that out. Give it a couple seconds here. All right. So I can see right here, we now have our webinar as our current project. We've got our folder structure there for P&ID drawings. Shouldn't be anything within there. Really shouldn't be anything other than, some simple pipe specs within there. But I want to go and create a new P&ID drawing. So I'm just going to simply right click on my P&ID drawings here and click on new drawing. So again, we don't want to go up to the top like you might do in AutoCAD and click new drawing there. The settings that I just went through for that project setup is going to set up everything that I need within there. So I'm using my project manager to go in and create a new drawing instead. So for this first one here, simple file name, we'll just call it P&ID 001. Keep it simple again here. Folder path, DWG template. You can see we got a P&ID ANSI D type within here. So again, I just took the default settings, but if we wanted to, we can go in and choose a different type. With Plant 3D, you do have a lot of P&ID type templates to utilize with some standard title blocks. Obviously, those can be modified with your company's title blocks to get you going with the P&IDs. So I'll go ahead and click OK here. And we got a very simple title block We are already in model space, so we are ready to start placing some information within here. So I want to go over to the tool palettes, and I didn't show you this earlier, but right now I've got the tool palettes, P&ID, PIP showing within here. Now, one thing at the very bottom here, workspace switching. I wanted to show you that. If I click on that, pops up and shows us some of the different options that we have. Now, in just regular AutoCAD, you have the 3D modeling, 3D basics, drafting, and annotation. When it comes to the plant side, you have the 3D piping, and then you have the different P&ID options within here. So you have PIP, ISO, ISA, DIN, GIS, ISO as well. So I'm sticking with the PID, PIP option for this one. And for each one that you would click on, you would get a different set of tools within your tool palette. Also, let me just switch it over to 3D piping just to kind of show you what happens with that. So when I switch that over, you'll notice up at the top, the Home tab changes to give me the 3D piping aspect. We also have ISOs, we have structure, analysis type information within here as well. So if you're doing P&IDs and you're seeing this, make sure you switch to the right workspace. You can see that your tool palettes also change for that instance as well. So there won't be any 2D P&ID symbologies within here, all 3D type information. So I'll go ahead and switch it back to the P&ID, PIP, and you can see now we have our P&ID information and our tool palettes have changed within here as well. All right, so first thing I mentioned was going in and placing some equipment. So if I go to the equipment tab here, you can see that we've got different areas within each tab. So you can see we have pumps up here, compressors, blowers, TMA type exchangers, other exchangers, storage tanks, so vessels down here as well. So I want to go in and just simply go in and place a vessel. All right, so I go ahead and click on that and bring my cursor over here, and you'll see the command line here specifying an insertion point. So if I go in and click a point, it gives me the option to go in and scale this. So depending on really how large you want your symbol to be, you know, if it's going to be a large vessel, maybe you want to make it larger, or if it's going to be a little bit smaller, we can go in and make it smaller. It also may depend upon how much space or how many objects that you really want to go in and place within your design. I'm just going to keep the scale at the default 1:1 here. So I'm just going to hit enter, and it gives me the option here to go in and assign a tag. All right, so for my tank here, first object I'm placing, I'm just going to type in 101 there. If I click on existing tanks, there isn't going to be anything listed within there. I also have the option here where I can go in and place an annotation after assigning the tag. So this is assigning the tag. This is actually going to be placing the tag. And you can see with the drop down here, we have some different annotation styles that we can go in and place. So these are the different types of tags that are available to place for this. Now I'm just going to place the regular equipment tag, and I'm just going to drop that just right up on the top here. So TK 101. The other nice thing I'd like to point out is when you're working in Plant, they've locked the viewport down, the scaling. So I know everybody's done this in AutoCAD before. When you zoom in, zoom out of a viewport, it totally messes up your scaling. It's already locked for you. So it's a small feature, but it's a very nice feature. The next one here, I want to go on and just place an exchanger. So I'm going to come up to the top here, and let's see here. I want to go in and place, we'll go ahead and place this one here. And I want to drop this in right next to it, and goes in and again wants me to plug in the number. So I'll just do 101 for that. Now I did 101 for the other one, but this one is designated for type as E, so it's going to give us a different tag for this. So I'm going to click on assign here, and I'm just going to drop this one below it. All right, and I also want to go and place a couple pumps within here as well. So if I come up here, I want to place a couple horizontal centrifugal pumps. And we'll drop those in place. And we want this one to be, we'll do 101A, and we'll assign that one, drop that below, and I'll go ahead and place another one. So I can just hit enter and drop this one next to it. And this time, if I go to my the button over here, what you can do with this is a nice feature to use when you want to choose a number that hasn't been utilized. So I'll kind of take that next number. Now this one was already designated as P101A. Instead, I'd rather have this one P101B. If I click on the drop down here, obviously we can see that. So instead of me using the 001, I want it to be 101B instead. And we'll go ahead and assign that, and we'll go ahead and just simply drop that one below it. Now, after going in and creating a few objects, I may want to go in and start adding some additional components within here. All right. Now, if I want to go in and add some nozzles, as you can see with this exchanger here, there are some nozzles attached to it, but depending upon the manufacturer, you may want to or may need to go in and add some additional nozzles within your design. So if I come over to the tool palette, I want to go down to the fittings, and we can see we got all kinds of fittings here. I'm actually going to go down towards the bottom where we have our nozzles located at. And I just want to go and place a single line nozzle and place it off of the top of my exchanger here. So if I click, and then I can basically move my rotation up there so that I have a nozzle extending out from that. Now to go in and start making a connection from there, I want to go back to my tool palette and go to my lines. Now in this instance, I want to go in and use a primary line segment to go in and create my first line. So if I go in and click on that and I bring my cursor over, it will snap to the node of that nozzle. So I go in and click to start my creation, and you can see that it actually adds a little arrow designation, so it shows the flow direction for the pipe that I'm creating. And I'm just going to extend this over to my vessel here, and watch what happens with the vessel. It is set to automatically add a nozzle when you go in and add a line to that. So that is something that you can customize within Plant 3D to have it automatically do that and add that information in there. Now, with that pipe that I just created, I may want to go in and add some information to that. So if I go in and click on my pipe here, and I'm going to right click on it, I'm going to choose to assign a tag to that pipe. So again, with the assigned tag, we have the pipeline segments, and it's requiring me to put in 4 different designations here: a size, a spec, a service, and a line number. All right, so if I click on my size, it's going to give me a drop-down list, and I can choose which size that I want here. So I'm going to choose an 8-inch size. If I go to my spec, now it's looking at the specs that I have within my project. And a lot of specs within here. You don't have to have this many specs in a project. You can shorten that list if you want to. But I'm going to use just the top one here, the CS150. The pipeline group service. I just want to designate this as just a general process. Again, these can all be modified too as well. So I'll just go down to P here for general process. And I'm just going to put in a line number 1007. All right, I'll go ahead and click assign, and I'll drop that designation in right above there. Now, later on, if you decide, well, I want that to be a 6-inch. Okay, well, we can just click on that, we can assign tag again, and we can go in and modify this in here. So if I want that to be a 6-inch, click assign, then you can see it automatically updates that information within that tag there. So again, later on, when you get into the Plant 3D side, and your Plant 3D is going to be driven by your P&ID, you can use the information that you plugged in here and making sure that you're using a 6-inch type pipe to go from the exchanger to the vessel within there. Now I'm going to make another connection coming off the bottom of this one. So go back to my primary line segment. Again, I can just snap right onto this node here, the one that was already added into it. And actually, let me reverse that. Let me do pipeline segment from the vessel here, a little bit different. And I'm going to come down through the line that's already been created and come over here. Now, if you watch what I'm doing here, I'm going to start from here, and you think, okay, what happens if I go over here? It's going to be, off target there. But if I go in and click on that node, you can see it automatically corrects itself. So in an AutoCAD instance, typically use the object tracking to line up those. Again, utilizing the P&ID lines, there's a little bit more intelligence added to those. So it's easy to go in and add those. You don't have to be totally accurate in trying to move it over there. It just does that automatically for you when you go in and start snapping those objects in. So adding a couple other lines within here, if I wanted to add another line coming off of this one. One thing that we can do is if I did come down off of the exchanger and to the vessel, and I figured, oh shoot, I wanted to do it the other way. So I came off the vessel and went to the exchanger. We do have the option here that we can go in and reverse the flow. So we can click on that and we can change the flow direction that we've got set there. So you don't have to go in and recreate something, delete something out and go in and recreate it again. You do have some schematic line edit options within here that you can go in and apply as well. Again, reversing the flow, you can add some breaks within there. You can link it from one pipe designation to another. Option to go in and add some gaps within there. If you're running a pipe behind an object, you don't want to see the pipe going through it, we can go in and add some gap lines in there. You can see that it automatically added the gap where we got the one line showing there. So another nice little feature designation with that. I'm going to go ahead and add another one here to the pumps that we have here. So I'm going to add a line off the bottom of our tank here. And I might have to move my pumps down just a little bit. So I'm just going to use my AutoCAD move tool. So no special tool for Plant to move objects, just using the regular AutoCAD. So again, I'll use my primary line here. I'm going to go in and connect to my pump over here. Bring this down again. Just to kind of reiterate, I'm going to move it offset there, come down, I'm going to let it snap, but let it correct itself as it connects to that. And if I want to go in and add another line and go in and connect to this pump, I can just click off of this one here and go in and make that connection to that pump. So we got a little bit of intelligence going on there. Create some more lines coming off the top of there, extend that out. Again, just simply snapping to the objects there, and it's adding the line work as we go. You can see it added the gap space within there as well. If I want to go in and start adding maybe some bypass type lines, we have that option as well. That might be a secondary type line segment. So it's going to give us a different color representation. So if I wanted to create some kind of bypass beyond that pipe there, I can go in and create a bypass type line within here. Allows me to go in and possibly create some valves within my design. If I'm going in and adding some valves, I want to come down here to the valve tool, and if I click on a gate valve and just simply go in and place it within my design here, you can see it automatically rotates, and it put in a designation there for a hand valve, just designated as hand valve 101. I go in and place another one within here. We got 102, so it automatically is numbering those up. And that again is something that can be modified with the way that you want it displayed. Again, if you want a different designation for valves, that is something that also can be modified to the way that you want. Now, modifying lines that you go in and create, if I simply click on a line, you can grab onto a symbol there. You can see that they do stay connected. It is, part of the pipe line string there. I grab onto this one here, you can see that it's still staying connected to that. We have the option here that we can go in and disconnect. You can just simply drag that away from it and have an unconnected designation there. We have an option where we can go in and again drag that back down, add more lines to it. So if I want to add an additional line segment to it, I can connect to this guy. Maybe. There we go. Get the little designation there. Line that up. We got it connected back up again. We do have some instrumentation lines, but the key thing to remember is that you're not getting any type of electrical systems. It's just, again, symbology type information. So you have signal lines, pneumatic, hydraulic signal lines, software type information. Again, these are all different types of lines, just right out of the box that you can have for controls and showing what is controlling what within a system. Take a look at, let's see here, some of the fittings that we have. So if you're putting in some reducers, again, you want to go in and designate your line work within here first. So if I go back to this one here, and we want to go in and assign the tag. So this one, we'll go with 6-inch. For the spec, we'll go with the CS150 again. We'll do the general process. This one we'll call 1008. You go in and assign it, and you go in and place that tag there. So when I move my cursor over a line, it will give me the data related to that particular line. You can see our primary line segment, everything that I just entered. It's telling me what that line is going from, the tank 101 to pump 101B. If I move my cursor down over this one here, you can see that it is part of line 108, but we don't have a size or some of the other information. So you can see we got some question marks within there. So if I wanted to assign a tag for this one, again, I would have to go in and plug some additional information in for this one. So let's say this one, went down to 4 inches. And again, we'll stick with the CS150. We want to assign that. And I'm just going to drop this one in down below here. So we can go in and move these tags as well. Turn off my ortho there. And again, we can go in and make changes as we go. When I move my cursor over this one now, you can see that we have the up-to-date type information. If we take a look at the data manager, we're going to see what we have so far. This is basically everything that I've created within this P&ID. If I go to heat exchangers, you can see there's the one heat exchanger. I can go in and start typing in information here related to that exchanger. And when I go in and add information within here, just throw in some random text there, and I get out of that. And I just simply go to the exchanger. We can go to the properties of that. I'll pull that over here. So you can see some of the data that is being plugged into the components that you have here. So here's the 101 designation. Let's see, where is, oh, I did not fill out. All right, I thought I put it in there. Let me try that again. All right, and let's click on that guy, properties. There we go. I think I must have just clicked out of it too quick there. So I added the information into my data manager. We can see that within the properties. Also, if I just simply click on it, go to my properties in here and type something different, I go ahead and put in a model number here for this as well. And we go back to the data manager. You can see that information gets updated there as well. So if we have any Revit users online here, it's kind of a parametric model, similar to the way Revit works. So if you're adding some information into one location, it is adding it in multiple locations within your design. Now we're kind of hitting on the hour mark here. I kind of want to open it up if there's any questions. If you want to throw any questions into the Q&A. Again, this is supposed to be just a really quick introduction to the P&ID. I don't expect everybody to be experts on P&ID. There's a little bit of customization, again, that you need to do to make the P&IDs work best for you and your company. But I think you can kind of see that if you have some of this set up, P&IDs can actually be pretty useful and a lot easier to work with than just AutoCAD type information. Again, you can't really add the line data into AutoCAD line work like you can within P&ID line work. So again, adding information into the components that we have here. Also, we can go in and create custom components pretty easily within here as well. So there's other items that I'd love to talk about, but again, we're kind of short on time here. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a series here. Maybe we'll continue on with the P&IDs if that is something that you guys would like to see in the future. But just checking to see if we have any questions from anybody. I'm not seeing anything. All right. So I will we'll wrap this up here. So again, a few of the things we took a look at. Again, the user interface, how to start a P&ID, went in and placed some equipment, added some instrumentation lines, did a little modification within the P&IDs. So again, just kind of grazing the surface of what you can do with P&IDs, but I think it's a very powerful option to have. And for those that haven't experienced Plant 3D yet, it's an easy way to start jumping into that and using that information. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending today. I have my email address. If you have any questions on Plant 3D or P&IDs in general, please reach out to me. If your company would like to explore P&IDs or Plant 3D, I am the plant guy here at ATG to try to help you out and get you going in the right direction. So again, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.